Can we talk a little Survivor for a second? Because I'm
I
all
love
about this.
Survivor.
I've been for years on this show. I've been saying Survivor is the move. Survivor is the move, and only now do I feel like it's gaining steam, the steam that it deserves. My biggest so if I were to give someone Survivor strategy up front, the first thing I would do is I would relate it to NFL Survivor, and I would say, okay, unlike NFL Survivor, which is 20, well, here at Circa it's 20, but let's say it's 18 weeks, right? You just can't pick the same team twice, but it's a linear thing. Obviously, the brackets make it multidimensional. You can lose by just getting knocked out in traditional Survivor fashion, or you can lose by not having any teams left.
Right.
So the question I would ask you is, because my philosophy is, because we talk about this a little bit in NFL Survivor, we're like, oh, we had some people like, oh, I just map out my whole thing from the beginning on a napkin. And then we have other people who are like, nah, I don't do any of that mapping out. I just play to survive each week. And there's some people that have a hybrid of that where they're like, I play to survive for a little while. It's kind of me. And then I kind of plan it if I get 5 weeks deep into it. My thing with NCAA Survivor is I do believe in that hybrid. I believe in, and mine is upset rewarded too. So I'm picking upsets in the first round, certainly. Maybe before the second round, but certainly before the Sweet 16. Then I'm doing the mapping out. Do you generally agree with that, or do you believe in mapping from the outset?
No, I would actually skew towards never mapping and just being in the moment at all times. I'm okay with the hybrid approach, but the more information, the better. Now, with these NCAA survivors, you're usually getting, like whatever happens on Friday is not really being impacted by what happens on Thursday. So doing them one round at a time, I suppose is not a bad thing. But yeah, this is a lot of the thing that I think people miss in NFL Survivor is future value. If you have the Kansas City Chiefs, who are probably going to be favored somewhat heavily in the majority of their games, are you choosing them now, or are there going to be 7 situations or 7 weeks in the future that you're going to be able to use them? That's this, but on steroids, right? Like future value here. When you look at a team like Wisconsin, who is incredibly likely to win their opening round game 93% of the time, but then it drops to something like, hey, maybe they only win their second game 63% of the time, 58% of the time. That's what you're looking for. A really high value team right now whose future value falls off a cliff. And that's the thing that I think people screw up a little bit in NFL Survivor, but here it's like it's happening at a much more rapid pace.
Yeah, so another way to put that is, so if you're in Survivor for the first time, let's say you pick a 7 over a 15 and you pick an 11 over a 14. Okay, well, let's say the 7 gets knocked out. You obviously don't want that. The ideal would be for that 7 to win that game, right? That seed to win that game, and then to be eliminated very quickly thereafter. The other thing you don't want is, let's say you pick one of those correctly, let's say the 11 over the 14, but that 11 ends up going really far. That's a bad thing too in the wash of it, right? So that's what you're really trying to navigate.
Correct. I had this problem, I think it was last year with, again, I don't remember, Illinois, maybe something like that, where, they just kept winning. They just went too far. Like, stop winning. You have to be, to be eliminated like next. That's the point, because you're going to end up running out of teams. So yeah, there is a situation where, your picks could be, the teams that you have already chosen are going too far. So you really do, I think, have to take on more risk, guys, than you probably want to, because you have that added factor of running out of teams. That's a big problem for people.
It's so good, because that's so right. Like, even in addition to your picture, like, stop winning over there, because you have to have enough teams left. And the only other thing, and I mentioned this yesterday, but I think this is the biggest sort of Survivor nugget that I could give people, is also be aware that the games that are on Thursday, Saturday versus Friday, Sunday this week don't necessarily play out that way when the Sweet 16 starts. You have to make sure, because most of these are day by day, right? You don't survive rounds, you survive days. So you have to be aware of that in the whole puzzle as well.
Yes. So the scheduling is critical. The way that the way that they advance through the bracket is important, and then obviously the paths, right? You've when you start getting into the Sweet 16, you've got to say, okay, well, if I pick this team, does that ruin my paths of having anybody left, right? So there is a lot more strategy involved than I think people who just want to sit down and say, oh, I'm going to be at the bar all day and I'll take this team and then I'll take that team. It's like, well, you're going to have to look through the bracket and play a little bit of a crystal ball game to get this thing right.